My trip to Spain. The following are some of Gloria's journal entries about her trip to Spain. Madrid. The journey from the airport today was an uninspiring way to begin our trip through Spain. A taxi carried my parents, my younger brother Jonathan, and me past rows of dreary, gray, concrete apartment buildings. This was not the Spain that I had seen in Dad's brochure. Soon, however, the scene changed. The taxi slowed as the streets narrowed and turned in all directions. Our hotel looks like a townhouse and is operated by a Spanish family that lives there. After checking in, we went for breakfast at a cafe on the Plaza de Santa Ana. While we waited for our churro con chocolate, an oblong donut, and hot chocolate, Mom pointed to a cafe and told us that it had been a favorite of Ernest Hemingway, the famous American writer. Dad muttered that everywhere in Europe there is a cafe that was a favorite of Hemingway. We decided to begin sightseeing at the Puerta del Sol, a plaza that marks the very center of Spain. Distances to other cities are measured from this spot. The buildings there are very old and ornate. As we admired them, we found our way into a ham shop. It smelled very sweet. The ham inside was dry cured, and there were probably 100 legs of it hanging from the ceiling. The Spanish call dry cured ham jamón serrano and eat it for lunch. Next, we walked to the Museo del Prado, Madrid's most important art museum. I noticed that the streets along the way were almost deserted. Mom explained that Spanish take an afternoon nap called a siesta. Dad said that with the sun so high and hot, he could see the advantage of a siesta, but he continued walking with us toward the Museo del Prado. We spent the entire afternoon there, but saw less than half of the museum's collection. At 10 o'clock, we returned to the hotel, where several children ran down the hall toward the kitchen. I crept toward the kitchen and was surprised to find that our host hadn't even started dinner yet. I suppose that if you sleep all afternoon, you get to stay up later. I was exhausted, but the aroma of sausage, onions, and saffron made me hungry. When our host invited us to eat with them, I happily agreed. Cordoba. We rode the train to Cordoba this morning. It was fun to ride the AVE, Spain's comfortable high-speed train. Outside the window, I saw dusty brown mountains and thousands of olive trees in the valley. I also saw some beautiful buildings. I asked Dad about these buildings and learned that Spain used to be a Muslim country. Before the Muslims were forced out of the country and into Africa throughout the Middle Ages, they built many wonderful buildings in Spain. One of those buildings was the Great Mosque of Cordoba. The Great Mosque is my favorite building on the trip so far. It was built by Muslims in the 8th century and was enlarged over the years. It is a huge hall full of columns stretching in all directions. Jonathan and I pretended we were in a deep, dark forest until we suddenly came upon a church right in the middle of the mosque. We learned that the church was built after Cordoba was reconquered, so no one would mistake the buildings for a Muslim mosque. Mom says that the southern parts of Spain are full of libraries, mosques, and palaces left behind by the Muslims. Clearly, the Muslim people made countless lasting contributions to Spain. Granada. Today we explored Granada, the most beautiful city I've ever seen. The people here say that one should have pity and give money to the blind beggar in Granada, because there's nothing worse than being both blind and in Granada. They meant that Granada is so beautiful that it must be very painful not to see it. This is especially true of the Alhambra, a wonderful 14th century palace and fortress built by Muslims on a hill above the city. The Alhambra includes a military fort, gardens, and fountains, along with halls and rooms that are completely covered with ornate designs. Most rooms have no smooth surfaces. The floors have a tile pattern, the walls are molded plaster with geometric or floral designs, and many ceilings are made from something called muqarnas, which look like hundreds of little stalactites in a cave. My parents really liked the gardens, and Jonathan liked the fountains flowing from the handrail along a stairway. Granada is in Andalusia, a region in southern Spain that is famous for its flamenco dancing. After dinner tonight, our waiter pushed away some tables, and a man and woman, both dressed in red and black, started dancing while another man played rhythmically on a guitar. The flamenco dancers stomped their heels so hard that my ribs shook. Barcelona. Today we explored Barcelona, our last stop. We had fun at a park designed by Antoni Gaudi. He liked to put lots of colorful tiles and crazy patterns all over his many buildings throughout Barcelona. In the center of the city, we walked along the Ramblas, a wide street that in medieval times served as the wall of the city. As we walked along the Ramblas, we saw everything from newspapers to caged canaries to clams for sale. Eventually, we turned off the street and made our way to the old Jewish quarter. The Jews were forced out of Spain along with the Muslims back in the medieval times, but those narrow streets once held a thriving Jewish community for more than 300 years. Spain is a fascinating country. I'm glad that we came here. I'll be back someday to visit all my favorite places and maybe explore some new ones. Number 1. How did Gloria's first impression of Spain differ from the information in her father's brochure? A. The buildings were older than in the brochure. B. The streets were more narrow than in the brochure. C. Unlike the brochure, there were few people in the streets. D. The scenery outside the taxi window is not pretty like in the brochure. Number 2. How did Gloria organize her journal entries? A. By comparing and contrasting the cities she visited in Spain. B. By explaining the Muslim influence in each Spanish city she visited. C. By describing the places she visited or from her most favorite to her least favorite. D. By describing what she saw in different Spanish cities in the order that she visited them. Number 3. Which word best describes how Gloria feels about the places and things she saw in Spain? A. Disappointed. B. Enthusiastic. C. Exhausted. D. Superior. Number 4. From what point of view is this passage written? A. First person limited to Gloria. B. Second person. C. Third person limited to Gloria. D. Third person omniscient. Number 5. Why isn't Spain considered a Muslim or Jewish country today? A. Muslims prefer to live in Africa and Jews prefer to live in Israel. B. People in religious minorities were forced to leave Spain in medieval times. C. Muslims and Jews were a military presence in Spain during the 14th century but were defeated by the Spanish. D. Muslims and Jews built libraries, mosques, and palaces as a gift to the people of Spain but did not intend to live there. Number 6. Which is the most likely reason that the Spanish people take a siesta during the afternoon? A. Very few taxis enter the city during the afternoon. B. Very few tourists are in the city during the afternoon. C. The shops close so tourists can visit the Museo del Prado. D. The Spanish people want to rest during the hottest part of the day. Number 7. The Muslim people left Spain because they A. Wanted to return to Africa. B. Were forced out of the country. C. Had finished the Great Mosque of Cordoba. D. Were reconquered by the Jewish community. Number 8. What is the most likely reason that Gloria and her family did not see the entire collection at the Museo del Prado? A. They decided to return to the hotel for a siesta. B. They were not interested in seeing most of the art. C. The museum has an extremely large collection of art. D. Gloria's father did not want to spend time in the museum. Number 9. Which sentence from the passage best supports the author's claim that the Muslim people made countless lasting contributions to Spain? A. One of those buildings was the Great Mosque of Cordoba. B. I asked Dad about these buildings and learned that Spain used to be a Muslim country. C. Mom says the southern parts of Spain are full of libraries, mosques, and palaces left behind by the Muslims. D. We learned that the church was built after Cordoba was reconquered, so no one would mistake the buildings for a Muslim mosque. Number 10. How does reading about the events of Gloria's trip in her journal help the reader understand about her trip? A. The journal shows how Spain has changed throughout history. B. The journal shows why the Muslims had such an effect on Spain. C. The journal shows the differences between several Spanish cities. D. The journal shows how Gloria felt about her vacation experiences in Spain. Number 11. What is Gloria's overall impression of Spain? A. Spain is a fascinating country with a rich history. B. Spaniards eat strange foods at odd hours of the day. C. Spanish streets are narrow and the buildings are old. D. Spanish scenery is uninspiring, dreary, and colorless. Number 12. Which sentence from the passage expresses an opinion? A. The flamenco dancers stomped their heels so hard that my ribs shook. B. I was exhausted, but the aroma of sausage, onions, and saffron made me hungry. C. The journey from the airport today was an uninspiring way to begin our trip through Spain. D. Mom says the southern parts of Spain are full of libraries, mosques, and palaces left behind by the Muslims. Number 13. Which information belongs on the blank line in the diagram? Cordoba. Olive trees, the Great Mosque of Cordoba. Granada. The Alhambra, flamenco dancers. A. Muqarnas. B. Colorful tiles. C. Muslim influence. D. Gardens and fountains. Number 14. At the beginning of the family's trip in Madrid, Gloria's father seems to be A. The most excited of all the family members. B. Most knowledgeable about the history of Spain. C. Less than enthusiastic than other members of the family. D. More interested in Spanish food than other family members.